Hello and welcome to a prophetic teaching about the one and only Mr. Juliani. The interesting thing is that when we talk about men have certain particular aspects of themselves that are hidden. We often recognize men within the physical plane of existence. And I'm talking about the physical planes of existence. I'm talking about the fact that when we look at men, we look at them through their physical features. We look at them whether they are male or female. So I'm using the term men generically to refer to both male and female. So we look at them through that. We look at them through that particular polarity and dichotomy of existence as far as the physical embodiment of souls is concerned. Because when a soul comes to earth, it must, by consequence and by effect and by principle within the universal principles of existence, as far as the manifestations of God are concerned in certain lower aspects and lower spheres of existence, the soul must either be male or female, because the universal laws that are male and female are part and parcel of a dichotomous world that is a becoming world, and we live in a becoming universe, we live in a becoming world. And we look at men as such, and beyond looking at men as such, we also look at men depending on the families that they have come from. We interpret men socially, we interpret men economically, we interpret men financially, we interpret men as far as family backgrounds are concerned and such. And all these, they're just systems of illusions. They're just systems of illusions that determine perception, interpretations, and that determine associations and interactions between associations. But we need to move beyond interpreting men physically. That is, we need to interpret men beyond the dichotomous becoming universe that we exist in, and come to a place of perceiving them in divine terms, because there is a divine perception of men and a divine understanding of men that goes beyond that which we perceive physically, and that which we even know dimensionally as far as the discernment of men is concerned. You see, there are those that discern men by activity and from activity and through activity, and there are those that discern men based on the primordial self. When you talk about the primordial self, we're talking about the spirit that the man is, that is made manifest through the soul, in the soul, and by the soul, and from the soul. As I've said previously, you are not a spirit with a soul. You are a spirit soul, that which you call your soul. It is an aspect, it is the concentrated and localized manifestation of your spirit. It is your spirit that is being made manifest through that particular aspect in reality of soul. So in certain terms, the soul is a faculty of the spirit. The soul is a faculty of the spirit. It is spirit as much as spirit is spirit, but it is a faculty of the spirit, and it has its own faculties. So the spirit is condensed, localized in the ambit of what we call soul. When we speak about the primordial self, that is the spirit, we are talking about that which you are in divine terms, and that which is God in divine terms, which is still that which you are not, but it is that which you have come from in God. Why? Because that which you know as yourself, the self that you know as you, it is part of a unit of awareness within the infinite spirit that is God, because God has infinite self-realizations of himself in himself within the awareness point, the incipient awareness point that is the I am. When the Bible says in the beginning God, that beginning is the I am, and that I am is part and parcel of who you are, because God is forever traveling into his infinite possibilities and into his infinite awareness systems that involve you as well. You are part of that beginning that is known as I am, and beyond being part of that beginning that is known as the I am, which is the beginning referred to in Genesis as in the beginning, you are also part and parcel of a localized, specified, individualized, personalized aspect of a unit of awareness in God that is God. So there is the Joseph that is myself in the primordial aspect of God that goes beyond the Joseph that is me in this present physicality. And that particular aspect of myself has to do with the realm in God that I am a unit of, because every one of us, we are units of awareness within the infinite spirit of God, but you're also units of awareness within the infinite realms of God, as far as the primordial creators of the universe are concerned. When you talk about the primordial creators of the universe, we are talking about the seven spirits, and we are talking about the councils within the seven spirits, because each and every single one of the seven spirits has other seven spirits in it. The seven spirits are in the seven spirits, and every one of the seven spirits lead a council of its own. It has a council of its own, a government of its own. So you find that there are people, for instance, when you talk about David and we look at someone like the mighty men of David, we look at someone like Samson. These people had emerged from the realm of the spirit of might, and they had different degrees of the spirit of might, and they had other aspects that are contained within the spirit of might, within the ambit of the seven spirits of God. And when you talk about someone like King Solomon had come forth from the realm of the spirit of wisdom within the spirit of might, and that spirit of wisdom that he had come from, he had also come from a certain other unit within the spirit of might, and that aspect or unit of the spirit of might is what is referred to as the spirit of the understanding of might, the spirit of the understanding of wisdom, the spirit of the understanding of wisdom within the spirit of might. Why do I say the spirit of might? Because his father had come from the spirit of might, and within the spirit of might that David had come from, there is another dimension and aspect that David embodied, and that dimension and aspect that David embodied is the dimension and aspect of the spirit of wisdom. So King Solomon came forth from the spirit of wisdom, but he was a concentrated and personalized unit of the spirit of the understanding of wisdom within the ambit of the spirit of might. Get? So that's the reality, and that's how every one of us is. And you can actually know what you are. You can know what you are beyond physical terms. You can know what you are, the soul that you are within the primordial self that is your spirit. You can know what you are by introspecting and investigating the matter through engaging the spirit of God. So that is the ambit that I will be speaking from as far as Juliani is concerned. Because the thing is, when we talk about Juliani, and many of us Kenyans, you know who Juliani is, there has never been, since the beginning of the history of this nation, there has never been a man like Juliani. And I dare say, even now, there is no one like Juliani. And I'm speaking in divine terms, there is no one like Juliani. And Juliani was set forth by God and was appointed by God to manifest certain possibilities of the believer, and in the context of the church, to manifest certain possibilities of the church in the ambit of the spirit from which and the spirit through which this man has emerged from, and this man emerged from and emerges from, as far as the primordial self of himself is concerned, within the ambit of the infinite spirit of God and the infinite realms that are contained in the spirit of God and the infinite dimensions of the spirit of God. And that has to do with the following: that Juliani has come forth and came forth from the spirit of, there is a particular spirit that is come from, and that spirit is the spirit of understanding within the spirit of wisdom. That is where Juliani has come from, as far as the infinite realms are concerned and the infinite possibilities are concerned. And beyond that, Juliani was also given a certain particular other element, and that element is the spirit of might. He functions within the ambit of the spirit of might. He was appointed to function in the ambit of the spirit of might. He is in certain dimensional terms, and if you've listened to my teachings, I've been talking about the spirit of might, and that we are in the era of the spirit of might. So when you talk about Juliani is a forerunner. He was a forerunner. He was appointed as a forerunner by God, such that he is a representation of particular phases and stages of the church in the ambit of the functions and operations of the spirit of might. And one of those particular functions is the following. When you read scripture, Jesus says in the book of Matthew that you are the light of the world. You are the light of the world. And he begins by saying that the church is the lamp. He talks about the lamp that is put on top of the table, and it's not put beneath the table, but it's put on the top of the table so that it can light the world. And then he moves forward and he says something else in the same verse. This is in the book of Matthew chapter 5, and he also says that you are a city set upon a hill. And when you fast forward and you come to the book of 2 Peter, there is a verse that believers like talking about and stating. He says that you are a royal priesthood, a holy nation. He speaks about the church as a nation. He speaks about the church as a nation. He speaks about the church as a nation. So these are three phases of the church. The first one is the phase of what we can call the lamp or the candle. There's that phase. Then you move from that phase and you come to the phase of the city, and you move from the phase of the city and or the stage of the city, and you come to the stage of the nation. And presently, where we are at and where we're supposed to transition to, we're supposed to transition to the phase of the nation, but the church has not yet come to the phase of the nation. And this is where Juliani is very important and very imperative. Why? Because the articulations of Juliani, as far as his music is concerned, Juliani was given certain particular potencies of the Spirit of God. And beyond being given these particular potencies, he also embodied certain particular vibrations within the Alpha and Omega creative universal frequencies of God. He carried the 5 manifestations of the Spirit of God and the 5 activities and functions of the Spirit of God within the ambit of the Spirit of might. And we also, within that particular reality, there is also the Spirit of wisdom that operated in him and operates in him. And this is the reality of it, that these functions that Juliani carried, he carried, number one, he was operating within the ambit of the alpha awakening frequencies. He was also operating in the ambit of the alpha elevating frequencies, alpha activating frequencies, and alpha expanding frequencies. And he was given a mandate of, in divine terms, I'm speaking in divine terms, he was given the mandate of activating divine proclivities and awakening divine propensities in the ambit of the 3 stages of the church. That he was appointed to move the church from that place of being a candle to the place of being a city, and to the place now of being a nation. In what way? Listen to the music of Juliani and certain things that Juliani handles. Juliani handled the social, economical, financial, and cultural and traditional development of the nation. And if you listen to his songs, these are the constant themes of his utterance. And these themes, in and of themselves, they are part and parcel of consciousness evolution. The part and parcel of consciousness evolution. And in essence, the church itself as a community has been appointed to develop social, cultural, economical, and traditional and educational systems. And this is what Juliani embodied, and this is what was appointed for Juliani, that through his music, any person that has been appointed by God to function in either or of these particular things, these realities that I've mentioned, the social, economical, cultural, traditional, and educational system, any person that has been appointed to be a leader by God, and any person that has been appointed to function in that particular reality, Juliani was given the authority by God to activate those proclivities, and not only to activate those proclivities, but to bring men into their divine destinies as far as the Spirit of God and the primordial ordinations of the Spirit of God in people is concerned. Notice what I said, primordial ordinations. Why? Because men have particular ordinations, which when you talk about primordial ordinations have to do with that which is absolute as far as the structure of the spirit that you are is concerned, which is also concentrated in your soul. Now that is the primordial aspect, and that primordial aspect has absolute and probable destinies. It has absolute and probable destinies. And we begin to speak about now the becoming. We talk about the becoming structure or the becoming ordinations, and the becoming ordinations have also their own probable and absolute destinies as well. And you find that this probable and absolute destiny in the primordial aspect and in the becoming aspect, they evolve. They evolve through what we listen to, they evolve through what we watch, they evolve through consciousness transference, they evolve through consciousness projection. And that is the ministry that Juliani was given, because when we speak about the media and we talk about music, music is for consciousness projection, music is for consciousness activation, music is for consciousness elevation, music is for consciousness expansion. And Juliani was given the authority by God to function in the ambit of the alpha awakening frequencies, and these were given to him more than they were given to other people. And I always found it strange when people compare Dekodida and Juliani. it was so strange to me because many people could not understand what Juliani is. Even to date, many people do not understand that Juliani was a prophetic symbol, that his utterance, his music was prophetic. His music was prophetic. It was speaking of an era to come. It was speaking about the 3 stages of development of the church, where the church moves from just being a light, just being a candle, and coming to being a city, and move from being a city and coming to a nation. And beyond coming to a nation, it was also to come to a place where now this nation becomes a kingdom, because ultimately the 4th stage of evolution for the church is that the church becomes a kingdom. The church becomes a kingdom. It moves from the candle, it moves from the candle, then it comes to the city, it moves from the city, it comes to the nation, it moves from the nation, and it becomes now a kingdom. And we are heading there slowly and slowly. And that's the thing, because the utterance of Juliani was supposed to provoke certain particular theological, notice what I'm saying, theological, certain particular theological systems in the ambit of the ordinations of God as far as the consciousness program systems of the ages are concerned, because every age and every era has its own consciousness program system. It has its own theological system, and the theology of God is progressive. That's why when you read scripture, God says so many times that I have so many things to tell you but you cannot bear them now. Again, that's in the book of John. And still in the book of John, it says that Jesus did and said so many things which were not written down. And in truth, not all of the things about God are written down in scripture. Not everything is written down in scripture. Scripture is foundational. It is foundational. And that's why you begin to talk about the spirit of revelation in the book of Ephesians chapter 1 verse 17 to 18. It talks about the spirit of revelation, and the spirit of revelation reveals hidden things. And even scripture itself, it has hidden structures of knowledge within it. Why? Because knowledge is contained within knowledge. Wisdom is contained within wisdom. And Juliani was operating from a higher platform of consciousness, from a higher particular sphere of existence. His electromagnetic wave field was so high that even the church itself did not, and I'm speaking in truth here prophetically, the church did not have room for Juliani. Let me say that the church did not have room for Juliani, because they look at Juliani as an activist, and now he identifies as an activist, I believe. But Juliani is more than that. Juliani was a prophetic symbol, and he carried out a prophetic function in the ambit of music. So in certain particular terms, Juliani was a psalmist, and he's still a psalmist. That's why I'm saying Juliani is a prophetic sign. He is a psalmist. Now, when you speak about psalmist, many people have the ideology that a psalmist is just a matter of chanting. It's just a matter of singing in the spirit. That a psalmist is just, a matter of singing in the spirit, a matter of singing worship and all that. But if you look at the spiritual texture and the spiritual possibilities of what a psalmist is someone that ministers prophetically, and it is also someone that ministers in the ambit of the ordinations of God for the times and the ordinations of God for times to come. This is a man that ministered. Juliani did not just minister from the now. He didn't just minister from the present. Juliani ministered beyond the present, and he converged certain particular timelines. He carried the possibilities of timelines. He carried the possibilities of timelines to come. He carried the possibilities of the timelines that were and the timelines that are. And any man that intentionally listened to him beyond the entertainment aspect, beyond the rhymes, beyond the rhythms, if anyone listened to him truly, and he was, and that person, you were listening to Juliani, and as you listen to Juliani, you were listening with the ear of the spirit and not with the physical ear. You are going beyond the prophetic, you are going beyond the poetic rhythm, you are going beyond the poetic rhyme. The Spirit of God provoked certain realities in you, and in essence, there is no moment in time where someone is listening to music and consciousness activation, consciousness awakening, consciousness expansion, and consciousness elevation does not happen. It is a lie. It is a lie. It does not happen. Now, this is the power that God has given musicians, and especially when we speak about psalmists, this is the power that they have been given. One of the powers that they carry, it is the power of creating, shifting, and changing destinies by genetic mutation, sound, anything. anything, when you talk about sound, when you talk about music, when you talk about vision, when you talk about images, when you talk about the media, we're talking about a system of genetic mutation and a system of mental transmutation, a system of mental transmutation, and a system that alters states of consciousness. When we speak about altering states of consciousness, we're speaking about creating states of consciousness, and not just creating states of consciousness, but also shifting and changing your universe as an individual, because every individual is a universe. You're a universe unto yourself. You're a universe unto yourself. And being a universe unto yourself, you determine the electromagnetic wave field from which you operate from and you operate in. You determine the state of your consciousness, and the state of your consciousness is in effect the place and the center point from which you create in, and the center point from which you create through and you create from. Still, the center point of awareness, that is the moment point, that particular moment point is also your attraction point. You attract realities and you attract people based on what you have become and what you are becoming, and you also attract people based on that which is active and that which is also dormant in you, as far as your electromagnetic wave field is concerned and as far as the energies that you're radiating are concerned. So you find that these psalmists, these musicians, they have the ability to transmutate marriages, to bring certain particular destinies of yourself into manifestation through the sound that they are producing, as far as the state of consciousness that they created that music from is concerned, and the state of consciousness from which they accessed the possibilities, the divine possibilities of God, either through the negative creative spectrum or through the positive creative spectrum, otherwise known as the tree of the knowledge of good and evil and the tree of life. So Juliani has ministered from the tree of life. The realities and possibilities he was activating, realities and possibilities of life in the primordial aspect, and beyond the primordial aspect, he was also activating possibilities in the becoming aspect. Why? Because they are destinies that are ordained in the end, they cannot be changed, and they are destinies that are created. And this is the interesting part. This is why you need to mind what you listen to, because the sound that you listen to creates destinies in yourself, and it actually connects you to certain particular realms of chronos, because music has the ability to bring into manifestation certain particular types of yourself and certain particular kinds of yourself within the types of yourself. Why? Because you have types of yourself and you have kinds of yourself. You have versions of yourself within versions of yourself, and these versions of yourself within versions of yourself, they have their own possibilities and they have their own destinies. And Juliani was given that authority. He was blessed by God more than his peers. He was elevated by God in such a place that his peers were not elevated to that particular place. That's why I said even now, we do not have anyone like Juliani. We have not produced another Juliani. But we thank God, because he shall produce another Juliani in time to come. He shall produce another Juliani in time to come. When I say he shall produce another Juliani, that means he shall produce by himself musicians that have that particular authority and operate from that particular system, that particular aspect of the psalmist grace that goes beyond what we know and comes to the aspect of rap, comes to the aspect of this particular genre of music. This particular genre of music itself, because the reality of the matter is music is one of the most powerful creative systems in existence. It is one of the most powerful universal creative systems in existence, and second to it is sex. It's only those two. And when we talk about those two also, in terms of fashion, it's not just music, it's just the media itself is one of the most powerful and the most potent universal creative systems. And the second one is sex. Those two have the ability to create destinies and to alter destinies. They have the ability to shift and change and to even determine the kind of souls you attract, because they shift and determine the kind of version of yourself comes into play. And this is the power that was given to this man by the name of Juliani. and he would activate certain particular proclivities in men, certain particular inclinations in men, in the ambit and through the functions of the spirit of might. And when these proclivities were brought to life and were brought to surface, it was so that certain possibilities of destiny can be awakened, because the possibilities of destiny, as far as the human consciousness and the human genome is concerned, they are activated by sound, they are activated by images, they are activated by scent, they are activated by sex, they are activated by thoughts, they are activated by imaginations. And that's the thing, that the imagination from which Juliani was flowing from in his primordial self and in his becoming self was in the ambit of the spirit of might, within that, in the ambit of the spirit of wisdom, within the spirit of might, because he was given that particular authority, primordially speaking, and also in becoming terms. And he would shift destinies. Literally, he would shift destinies and awaken destiny, raise people to function into the social systems of existence and determine social structures, and people to also determine cultural, traditional, educational, and economical structures of existence. Why? Because that is one of his functions. That was one of his functions. Now, there's a reason I'm saying is and was at the same time. Because the thing is, that which he was in divine terms, he still is. And that which he has become outside divine terms, he still is. And that's the reality of things. I know that now the version of himself that is at play is not the version of himself that was ordained to function within the ambit of that particular spirit. The version of himself presently is functioning within a certain particular lower trajectory or lower electromagnetic wave field. This is a lower version of himself that is at play now. It is not the highest possible version of himself. And if it was the highest possible version of himself, the possibilities that he would have brought into play as far as the present era of the spirit of might is concerned, those particular possibilities would have been something else. Because the thing is, he was appointed for this era, the era of the spirit of might. And in the era of the spirit of might, the council of the spirit of might functions in such a way that it is bringing shifts in systems and in structures. And the systems and structures of the church, they are also in a shift. They are being shifted when you talk about the social, economical, cultural, traditional, and economical structures of the church. They are going to shift, and they're in a place of shifting. And this is what was the utterance of Juliani. It was what was the subtle utterance of Juliani. Now, this is the interesting part. I'm going to read from the book of Psalm chapter 71 verse 7. It says, I have become as a wonder to many. I have become as a wonder to many, but you are my strong refuge. Now, Juliani was appointed as a wonder. There are people that are appointed as wonders. When you speak about wonders, we're talking about signs. There are people that are signs, and they are signs of the age that is, and they are signs of the age that is to come, and they are signs of the age that will come. Because there is the age that is, there is the age that was, and there is the age that is to come. And when you speak about the age that is, and the age that was, and the age that is to come, there are also people that are signs of the age that was, the age that is, and the age that is to come. That means that they converge ages. There are people that are convergence of ages. That means that they are harmonic convergent systems. They converge very many vibrations. Let me use that term. They converge very many vibrations, multiple vibrations of past ages, present ages, and ages to come. And this is in essence a truth. Why? Because when we begin to speak about the realities that people embody in God, now we're talking about what we believers call mantles. We talk about the mantles that people live as far as they die, because what you embody in God remains in this system as you transfer to the other system. So the things that men embody and the things that men reject in God, the things that men fail to embody, they remain. They remain in this system because they are ordained for this system. Now, as far as the possibilities of Juliani are concerned, that which he was to embody within his functions in the system of God, which he hasn't embodied fully, and I'm saying that with confidence, which he hasn't embodied fully, they still remain. That possibility of God still remains in this particular system of ours. And there are people that will come into that particular reality in days to come. They will come into that particular reality in days to come. Why? Because the evolution of signs and wonders within systems, within physical systems and physical structures of existence, the evolution of men within a nation, and the evolution of man within a certain particular territory and within a certain particular family. The evolution of man determines which souls are born in that particular system, whether it is a family because family is a system, whether it is a territory because a territory is a system, or whether it is a nation. So he was also structured to attract a particular breed of souls. As he remained faithful, and if he had remained faithful to the end in certain particular terms, as far as holiness and righteousness is concerned, the souls that were to be attracted through that which he would have become and that which he was appointed to become. Because when we speak about the 4 phases of the church, we speak about the candle phase or the lamp phase, and you come to the phase of the city, and you come to the phase of the nation, and to the phase of the kingdom. Those 4 evolutionary stages of the church. When you about those 4 evolutionary stages of the church, those 4 evolutionary stages of the church determine the souls that are to be born in the church, and the souls that are to be born through believers, and the souls that are to be born through nations, through families, in societies, and all that kind of stuff, and in territories as well. So the people that are appointed as a light in a generation, they are favored and they're elevated. And they're not just favored and elevated in terms of gifts and in terms of talents and in terms of functionalities as far as the divine is concerned. No, they are also elevated to function as attraction points for certain particular souls that will ride upon the electromagnetic wave fields. Because in essence, when souls are coming to earth, they ride through and they ride in certain electromagnetic wave fields. And there are souls that cannot be born on earth. Why? Because the electromagnetic wave fields of that particular territory or that particular family has not yet ascended to a place that it can attract a certain particular soul. So that soul will wait until there is harmonic convergence between the evolution of man, that means the state of consciousness of man, generally speaking and specifically speaking, and the probable birthing and conception system of a particular soul. Because souls have systems, they have probable systems of birthing and probable systems of conception. You have that. And when the conditions, that means when the probabilities of the birthing of a soul are met as far as the different realms of existence and the different spheres of origin are concerned for respective souls and for general souls as well, that is when a soul will come. So Juliani was appointed to aid the evolution of the church and to aid the evolution of individuals to a particular realm and dimension in God, to a certain particular higher platform of existence, such that there are particular souls that were to be attracted to this particular system of ours as a result of the functionalities of Juliani through music, in music, from music, and by music. Now, this is the interesting part. The music that you listen to determines what you birth. Because music is part and parcel of your evolutionary system. And it also determines the probabilities of conception that determine the soul that you attract. And Juliani was appointed to do that, to shift structures of consciousness and to appoint structures of consciousness. Any person that causes shifts appoints. Appointments are through shifts. Appointments are through evolution. There are appointments in God you have not yet come to because you have not yet evolved into them. There are things that you evolve into. Everything in God is something that you evolve into. Yes, it is given, it is granted, but you need to evolve into it. Why? Because this is the thing. All of the things God has promised you, there are possibilities of consciousness, and the possibilities of consciousness are dependent on your evolutionary process. There are things you evolve to in God. So evolution is a prerequisite of the fulfillment of destiny. Evolution is a prerequisite of the possibilities of destiny and the fulfillment of destiny. So the versions of souls that he was to attract through his ministry and the versions of soul he was to create the capacity for attracting through his ministry, they still remain. They have not yet come, but they will come. They will come. Why? Because the probable systems of evolution, the probable system of evolution, the possibilities of birthing, the possibilities of conception, and the possibilities of birthing, the systems of birthing and the systems of conception, as far as the attraction of souls is concerned, in the ambit of the evolution of the consciousness of a people and in the ambit of the evolution of consciousness of respective persons, it has certain particular systems of administration, such that if a person appointed to create that particular system does not create that system, God will find another way of creating that system. So there are certain particular systems that are created, and a person that is appointed in a nation and that person fails to create it, God can use another person in a different nation to administer that reality, and that reality will be administered differently. It will come in a different version of itself. That means in a different possibility of itself within the possibilities of itself in itself that are itself. You get? So you find that another psalmist functioning in a certain particular system of operation that is different from the system of operation that Juliani was operating from and is operating in will be used in this particular nation, though he's not of this nation, to create a certain particular platform of consciousness for individuals and for individuals respectively and collectively, so that those souls can be birthed. You get? So that those souls can be birthed. And you find that there is and that has a lot to do with the transference of assignments. Assignments can be transferred, and assignments are transferred as far as the ordinations of God are concerned, in the primordial sense and in the becoming sense, in the absolute sense and in the possible sense as well. So find that, for instance, that which he was to do, a psalmist like Theophilus Sunday, Abe Ojumu, or a psalmist like when we begin to talk about Lawrence Oyo, those are people that God can use and uses, and he has used to create certain particular platforms of consciousness that have the potency of attracting certain particular souls. Why? Because we have evolved to a certain particular platform, and we have created an electromagnetic wave field, and we are radiating an electromagnetic wave field through which these souls can ride on and come and be conceived through us, based on our evolution of consciousness, based on the general evolution of consciousness and the respective evolution of consciousness. So when I'm talking about the general evolution of consciousness, I'm talking about the cosmic man or the subquantum man, because there are certain particular hidden elements of the evolution of territories and of the realities of nations as well. And I've taught this before. So when we begin to speak about Kenya, in certain divine terms, Kenya is looked at as an individual, a single entity. And that single entity, and in that single entity, all of us are just units of that single entity. They are units of that single entity, dimensions of that single entity, and these single entity has dimensions within dimensions, and etc. ad infinitum. There is no end to the withinness of the structures of existence and to the withinness of consciousness. So when you begin to speak about Kenya, Kenya is looked at as an individual. So in certain terms, something can be said to Joseph, and it is said in the higher realms that it has been said to Kenya. Why? Because in certain terms, I am Kenya, and in certain terms, you are Kenya as well. So the state of your consciousness is part and parcel of the state of the consciousness of the nation of Kenya. So, and as far as the people that God has raised in this nation are concerned, when these people, musicians, pastors, etc., leaders, whatever, they are appointed to aid the evolution of consciousness. And when they fail to administer their realities, they fail to create certain particular conditions for the birthing of particular souls that have been appointed to be birthed in this nation through the attraction moment point, that is the state of awareness of the nation of Kenya. Because generally speaking, the nation of Kenya has a certain particular state of awareness as far as the respective millions and millions of states of consciousness of the people in the nation are concerned, because the mass consciousness of the people has its own particular state of consciousness, and that particular state of consciousness is the state of the consciousness of the individual and the entity that is known as Kenya. So that individual and entity is connected to diverse realms, the realms of Chronos and other different realms of origin that goes beyond the realms of Chronos, because when a soul is coming to earth, it has to go through from the realms of Chronos and enter into whatever family, whatever individual, whatever territory it is coming to be born through. You see, and music plays a part in that. The music that you listen to creates a state of consciousness, and that state of consciousness attracts certain particular souls. That is a reality, because any songs, music, media, whatever, they create a state of consciousness, and that particular state of consciousness becomes a unit of your state of consciousness within your state of consciousness. You see, there are states of consciousness within states of consciousness. There are active states of consciousness within your general state of consciousness, and there are dormant states of consciousness within your general state of consciousness. You see, there is no end to the universe, the unity of the reality of consciousness itself. There are states of consciousness within states of consciousness ad infinitum. That means that there are possibilities of consciousness within possibilities of consciousness. And that is the reality of the ministry of Juliani. That was what he was appointed to do. And he is a prophetic sign. He's a prophetic sign that is, a prophetic sign that was, and a prophetic sign that is to come. That means that what he was in divine terms, what he was is still condensed, it's still in the media. What he was before what he became is still in the media. And if you listen to that, there are aspects of yourself that will come into play. And if you listen to what he has become now, there are aspects of yourself that will come into play. Why? Because any song that is sung, it carries the possibilities of that individual from the moment point of awareness and beyond the moment point of awareness. You get from the moment point of awareness and beyond the moment point of awareness. And it also reflects that which he is to be, that which he is becoming within that which he has become. All these, there are possibilities that are contained in the sound that you listen to. And the sound that you listen to, it is consciousness that is being projected. It is a state of consciousness. It is possibilities of consciousness that create and activate certain particular inclinations within yourself that are yourself, in the negative universal creative spectrum and in the positive creative spectrum as well. So Juliani, in and of himself, the appointment of God that was upon that man, and the reality that remains of him in the spirit, and the reality of him that remains in this nation, the mantle, let me use that term, the mantle that remains in the spiritual atmosphere of this nation, it is something that can still be captured. It is something that can still be captured. Why? Because there has not been another one like him, but there will be another one like him in days to come. Now, if you have questions, feel free to ask. God bless you. And I'm having a teaching on the 28th of February. I'll be talking about the mystery of conception. I'll be talking about so many other things that I've not mentioned here. I'll be talking about the pillars of identity in the primordial aspect of yourself and in the becoming aspect of yourself. I'll be talking about the pillars of your dream world, and I'll also be talking about other things relating to that and how to change the pillars of your identity, because the pillars of your identities are also pillars of your dream world. Remember, if you have a question, feel free to ask, and God bless.